Hello and welcome! In this lecture we're going to polish the visual for our destructible crates by handling some nice mesh destruction. We're going to slice the crate into multiple parts and use physics to blow them up. Okay, so we already have the crate working. If I select the grenade action and I throw it near the crate, it blows up and there you go, the crate is gone. So the logic all of it worked, the crate is gone, the position is now walkable, but the crate just vanished. That's not very interesting. So instead let's make the crate blow up into pieces. And for that, we're going to use Unity's built-in mesh tool, ProBuilder. First, we need to install it, so let's go into Window, go into the Package Manager. Then up top, make sure you are in the Unity registry, and just wait a bit for it to fetch. Then here, just scroll down until you find the ProBuilder package. So here it is. So go ahead, hit on Install. Alright, it's installed. Now let's close this. And we can now find our crate prefab. So let's find it on the prefabs. We have the crate. And let's duplicate this one and call the second one the crate destroyed. And now instead of double clicking to go inside the prefab, let's drag it over here onto the world. Now this is important. The thing that we're going to do in a bit won't work inside the prefab, so just drag it over here onto the scene. Now in this one, let's get rid of the crate script as well as the collider. And for the layer, let's also put it back on the default layer, okay. Now inside we have the visual, so right now just this visual. And the goal is to slice this into various pieces. In order to do that, we're going to be using ProBuilder. So let's go up top into Tools, ProBuilder, let's open up the ProBuilder window. Here it is, it's this nice little menu. So with this, select the visual game object, and first thing we need is over here, this one for ProBuilderize. Now this is a button which will take this mesh and convert it into the ProBuilder mesh type. So you can click on this button, although alternatively you also have this plus button, so just in case you need a bunch more options. But in our case, for this specific mesh, just clicking the button using defaults works. So click on it and there you go. Now this is a ProBuilder mesh. You can see here in the inspector that we have now a ProBuilder mesh filter. Alright, now the function that we're going to use to slice this mesh is actually marked as experimental. That means it's possibly not stable, although for the most part I haven't had any issues with it. In order to enable it, we need to go up here into Edit, then go down into Preferences. Then over here find the ProBuilder. And here we have a toggle for experimental features enabled. So just go ahead, click to enable it, and as soon as you do, don't touch it again. It looks frozen, but it's actually compiling the code. So just wait a bit, and after a while it should be done. Okay, it's enabled. Now we can go up into Tools, ProBuilder, and now we see this experimental menu. So let's open up the Boolean tool. And yep, here it is. So this allows us to do all kinds of Boolean operations between two meshes. For the first mesh, let's drag our crate. Okay, there it is. And for the second mesh, let's make a cube. Let's make it inside the crate destroyed prefab. So let's right click, make this a child object. So a new 3D cube, there it is, a child object. And over here, if we try dragging it as a second object, it does not work because this requires a ProBuilder mesh. So once again, let's go into the ProBuilder window. Let's select the cube and just click on ProBuilderize. So now this one is of type ProBuilder, so we can drag it and yep, there it is. Okay, now here you see all kinds of operations that we can do. So we can do a subtraction, which means you remove the parts that are overlapping. You can make a union, which pretty much just merges both of them. Or you can select intersection, which creates a mesh with only the parts that overlap. So this is the type that we want, but before we do, let's actually position our cube. So let's put it up here, somewhere around the side. So we basically want to cut off that chunk of the original crate. And now this is the part where, like I said, it's very important for you to be doing this in scene mode and not inside the prefab. If you're inside the prefab, it won't work. And also, like I said, this is an experimental tool. So before we go ahead and try to hit on apply, before that, let's hit on Ctrl S in order to save our project. Again, I don't usually have issues with this experimental tool, but sometimes it might crash your project, so do make sure to save. Okay, so with this, with everything selected, let's go ahead, hit on apply. And yep, it worked. And if we see in the hierarchy, yep, we've got a new game object and it's automatically selected. And if we move it to the side, yep, there you go. We have a chunk of our original crate. All right, great. Now with this also, there's one potential issue that sometimes might happen. So if you move the camera, sometimes that object might vanish just randomly. In my case, it's not happening right now, but sometimes when I work with this, sometimes that does happen. So if it happens to you, if you're seeing the object just randomly disappear as you move the camera around, if you see that happen, it's actually an issue with the pivot on the generated object. And if that happens, then it's a simple fix. You just open up the ProBuilder window. And over here, there's a button to center the pivot. So if you have that issue, just click on it. And then also for some reason, sometimes clicking just once doesn't work, but if you click twice, then it should always work. Like I said, this issue only happens sometimes. So in our case, nothing changed because the mesh is already working correctly. But if your mesh was randomly going invisible, then this should fix. Alright, so really all we need to do is just follow this process in order to cut off more chunks from the crate. So first of all, let's remove this original piece. Now let's pretty much just make different cubes in order to slice off different parts. So let's first position this first cube. Let's say we just want to grab a nice chunk, just that corner. Then let's duplicate this cube. For this duplicate, let's put it on the side. Maybe make it a bit bigger like this. Then let's make another one. Let's put it maybe somewhere around here. Maybe for this one, let's actually go down quite a bit. So let's just place all of them. And we just need to move them around. Also here, in order to be able to see more easily, because right now with ambient occlusion, it's a bit difficult to see just how far they are. So we can just disable the lighting and all these special effects. So now it's a bit easier to see. So now we just need to position them and make sure that they do not overlap. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. So the cubes don't have to occupy the entire position. So if there's some gaps in between, that's okay. It's not going to be a big issue. Basically, these parts will be spawned and then blown up almost instantly. So if there are some gaps, it really won't be noticeable. So let's just keep placing some more cubes to occupy the entire mesh. Alright, so I think like this looks pretty good. So we've got all kinds of slices on our cube. Now with all of them positioned, let's once again open up the same window. So ProBuilder experiment on the Boolean window. Let's drag the original crate as the first game object, then the first cube as the second one. Select the intersection. Once again, let's hit save before we do anything, and let's hit on apply. And there you go, the object was created. Now don't move it, don't touch it, don't do anything to this one. Let's just select the second cube, so just drag the second reference. Let's hit on apply. Now the third one, hit on apply, and so on, and just keep doing this. Alright, so here are all of the generated parts. And to see them, we can just select all of the cubes in the original one, and let's just disable these game objects. By the way, the shortcut I use is Shift-Alt-A to enable or disable the game object. Okay, so now we can already see all of the various parts that make up our cube. We can re-enable the lights as well as the special effects. Okay, so there it is, all of them. Now with this, let's select all of the new game objects. Let's rename them. So let's call them all crate part. And let's drag them to be child of this game object. So child of this one. Okay, so now if you have issues with the mesh disappearing, then do what I said. So just go into the ProBuilder menu and refresh the center pivot. Click on it twice. In my case, I didn't get that bug. There's no issues with the visual, so no need for that. Alright, so all of the new parts are here. Now, if you want, you can go ahead and destroy the original ones. Destroy the cubes in the original crate. Or just in case you want to change some things in the future, then you can leave them as is, just disable the game objects. So with that, now let's select all of the crate parts. The goal is for these to be physics objects. So let's add a component, let's add a mesh collider to all of them. And since these meshes are a bit weird, we need to enable convex. And then in order to be a physics object, let's also add a rigid body. Okay, so that's really it. Now let's save the prefab, so select the prefab on the inspector, override, and let's apply all the overrides. Okay, so now with this object in the world, let's just lift it up a bit so it falls nicely. So just with this, if we hit on play, yep, there it is, all of the blocks fall and fall apart right away. Alright, so this is all working correctly. However, we also see one thing. If we pause the game and we rotate the camera, for example on this piece, here you see the issue. Due to how this mesh was made, the sides of this cube are just a simple quad, so there's no extrusion. And with this one, by default, the material only renders one side, so if you look from here, yep, that piece looks correct, but from here, that one is invisible. Now, if you wanted, you could fix this by just adding more geometry to the original crate, or a much more simpler approach is let's just select it, let's go into the polygon prototype material, and on this material, on the surface objects, here we have an option for render face. Instead of just rendering the front, let's render both of them. And there you go, now that one renders all the time. Okay, so here is the crate blown up into pieces. Now all we want is just to combine this with the crate destruction. So let's remove this crate from the scene. Then on the Destructible crate script, over here let's add that field. So let's add a serialized field. Private transform for the crate destroyed prefab. Then here in the editor, let's find the crate and drag the crate destroyed prefab, okay? Then on the script, when we destroy our crates over here on the damage, before we destroy this game object, let's call instantiate. Let's instantiate our prefab on this same transform.position and transform.rotation. Okay, so let's see if it works. So here we are, there's the crate. Now let's throw a grenade, and boom, there you go, it does work. So as the crate was destroyed, it spawned the one with the parts. So it's working correctly, but it would look much better if the parts would actually explode and fly away, so let's do that. Let's do pretty much the exact same thing we did over here on the unit ragdoll script. So we've got this function to apply an explosion to the ragdoll, just cycles through all the children, gets the rigid bodies and applies the explosion. That's exactly the same thing we want to do. So let's copy this code, and on the Destructible crate. Now if we wanted, we could make a script just for the destroyed crate, or we can just add the logic directly here on this script. So let's paste that function. Let's just rename this, so apply explosion to children. So that's it, all of the code is exactly the same. We cycle through all the children, get the rigid body, apply the explosion, okay. So over here, after we instantiate, let's grab the transform for the crate destroyed transform. Then we just need to call apply the explosion. And on this one, let's pass in this as the root transform. Then for the force, let's try 150. For the position, let's put this transform.position. And for the range, let's say 10. Alright, that's really it. Let's see. So here we are. Let's pick the grenade. Let's throw a grenade on this crate. And boom, there you go. It does blow up into pieces. Alright, awesome. Okay, so here we added some really awesome destruction to our crates. When the crate blows up, it looks and feels really satisfying.